of the transportation bill that runs out at the end of the week, and passage of that bill would mean negotiations can begin with the Senate on a compromise transportation bill. Also today, a special Veterans Department assistant to oversee veterans housing and several bills dealing with technical financial regulations.
In order. Chair lays before the House a communication from the Speaker.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., March 26, 2012. I hereby appoint the Honorable Jeff Denham to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, John A. Boehner, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to the order of the House of January 17, 2012, the Chair will now recognize members from lists submitted by the majority and minority leaders for morning hour debate. The Chair will alternate recognition between the parties, with each party limited to 1 hour, and each member other than the majority and minority leaders and the minority whip limited to 5 minutes each, but in no event shall debate continue beyond 1:50 p.m. The Chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Connecticut, Ms. DeLauro, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, it is with the heaviest of hearts that I rise today to pay tribute to the life and legacy of one of our community's most outstanding entrepreneurs and my dear friend Murray Lender, who we lost on March 21st at the age of 81. A bagel baker, food executive, and philanthropist who helped to bring the bagel to kitchens across the nation. Murray was a close friend, and I was deeply saddened to learn of his passing. Murray, the son of immigrant parents, never forgot his roots and humble beginnings in New Haven while he worked to foster goodwill and humanitarianism. He was a special person and leader, part of a special family that takes care of each other, bringing jobs to networks of friends and serving the larger community. From counting bagels in the family's backyard bakery before he was 11, Murray rose to become a food marketing innovator who took what was formerly only an ethnic product and made it a national staple available to all. In more recent years, Murray directed his focus toward philanthropic work. His energy and creative thinking had a major impact on anything he undertook, particularly in his hometown of New Haven. Active in both the local Jewish community as well as his alma mater, Quinnipiac University, Murray's influence can be seen throughout the city, which has recognized him with a school playground in his name, the ADL Torch of Liberty Award, and an honorary Doctor of Humane Letters from Quinnipiac University, to name a few. Murray Lender was an extraordinary human being, and I consider myself fortunate to have called him my friend. He leaves such a legacy that we celebrate even as we mourn his passing. I extend my deepest sympathies to his wife Gilly, his children, daughter Harris and her husband Evan, and sons Carl and Jay, grandchildren Olivia, Adam, Jesse, Raquel, Shiva, Julian, Diego, and Claudia, as well as his brother Marvin and his wife Helene. We can see the unfailing smile in the face of adversity and all his work that carries on. Murray Lender lit up the world. We will miss him. Yield back.
The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Thompson, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today the Supreme Court will begin hearing oral arguments on the constitutionality of the President's health care overhaul, the so-called Affordable Care Act of 2010. While the Court is still months away from its decision, in many ways the verdict already has been cast by countless American families and small businesses negatively impacted by the law. In 2010, then Speaker Nancy Pelosi suggested, quote, "We have to pass the bill so you can find out what's in it," end quotes. 2 years since passage, American families have found out the hard way, with increased taxes, looming regulations, and a slew of broken promises, from fictitious cost controls to limitations on consumer choice. Most recently, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office served a devastating blow to President Obama's most frequently used tagline, "If you like your present coverage, you can keep it." Well, the CBO report suggested there will be a net loss of employer-based insurance coverage of between 3 and 5 million people per year from 2019 to 2022. This has the potential for 20 million Americans to lose their insurance coverage over just a 4-year span. On the first anniversary of the Affordable Care Act, I joined the U.S. House Energy and Commerce Committee for a congressional field hearing in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, in order to review the law's impact throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. During the hearing, Pennsylvania's acting insurance commissioner, Michael Considine, testified that new mandates on insurance coverage had resulted in premium increases of up to 9%. These figures mirror the national trend, as outlined in a recent study by the Kaiser Family Foundation. The Kaiser report shows that the average annual premium for family coverage through an employer reached $15,073 in 2011, an increase of 9% over the previous year. This is a far cry from Barack Obama's 2008 proposition that his law would cut family premiums by $2,500 before the conclusion of his first term in office. President Obama had also promised that he will not sign a health care plan that adds one dime to our deficit either now or in the future. However, an honest accounting of the health care law finds that it will increase the deficit by hundreds of billions of dollars in the first 10 years alone. Former Congressional Budget Office Director Douglas Holtz-Eakin has testified the law will increase the deficit by at least $500 billion in its first 10 years and more than $1.5 trillion over the decade thereafter. At a time of severe budgetary constraints, there is only one place to turn in order to keep up with this spending: the wallets of Americans, in the form of tax increases. Having spent almost 30 years in the nonprofit healthcare field, I am acutely aware of the challenges many face when it comes to obtaining reasonably priced health care. While many of us agree there are portions of the law that are beneficial, such as the ability of adult-dependent children up to age 26 to stay on their parents' insurance, the elimination of excluding those with pre-existing conditions from the plan, and the expansion of low-cost clinics into underserved areas, the approach of the Affordable Care Act is fundamentally flawed. The law places Uncle Sam between doctors and patients, when it should be the American people, not Washington bureaucrats, to determine the kind of health care coverage that best suits their needs. Over the past 2 years, as the regulations have rolled out and the American people continue to learn what really is in the law, the broken promises have continued to pile up, weighing on the backs of small businesses and families. That's why we must repeal the law and toss out the negatives, move forward with reforms that actually lower costs without sacrificing quality and liberty. This week, just blocks away from this chamber, the Supreme Court will hear arguments on the constitutionality of this law. While the court's decision is months away, the verdict has already been cast by the countless American families and small businesses in congressional districts across this great country that simply cannot afford the so-called Affordable Care Act. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Pursuant to Clause 12A,